Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, who have been proudly serving the families of New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals. And now, Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.
Is there a novel in you in the new year? Hi, I'm Diane Kinderwater. Happy New Year. We're still into the new year and we're wishing you a great new year and prosperous 2021. But is there a novel in you? During this pandemic, when we've all been shut down, people thought, hey, maybe this is time to get that story out, something that you've been thinking about for years or possibly even decades. Maybe there's a full-length novel, a short story, a poem, a memoir. What about an autobiography? Well, in the program, we're going to talk about how we're going to get that out of you. How do you start if you've been thinking that, yes, I have something to write and something to say? So please stay with us as we discuss Southwest writers and how they can help you get all that out on paper right after this. I'm probably like a lot of you. We have something that we'd like to share, something that we'd like future generations to read, something about our life, something that we've discovered, something that we think is really important to pass on. But how do you start doing that? Well, I don't know, because I still have that novel in me and I want to get it out. But I've been told that Southwest Writers is going to help us, and they're going to help us today. And we're going to start with two members of Southwest Writers, and we appreciate Patricia Walkow being a part of the program today. She's an author and also a member of Southwest Writers. And we have Joe Brown. Joe, welcome, an author, a new author and a member of Southwest Writers. So happy New Year to you, and as we say, happy writing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pat, tell me, what is Southwest Writers?
Southwest Writers is a wonderful organization that has existed since the early 1980s. It originally started as a romance group, but that has since expanded. And it is a collection of writers who meet, when we used to be able to meet in person, we would meet every Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, and the third Tuesday. But of course, we're doing that all electronically now via Zoom. But the purpose of the entire group is to help writers become better writers and to help them on their path to publishing and help them build careers in writing if that's what they want.
But how to start? That is the key, right? There's a lot of people, you told me during this lockdown, during this pandemic, they've been wanting to write but needed to get it out. Does Southwest Writers help push them, incentivize them to get going?
Well, one of the things Southwest Writers does is it offers numerous workshops, speakers, classes, one-on-one sort of mentoring for anyone who is interested in writing. Sometimes people think, well, I don't know how to start.
Right, correct. That's why we don't know how to start.
That's correct. And they also think, well, I don't know what to include in what I write and what not to include. And it's like any other muscle, you know. Practicing the writing muscle is the same as wanting to learn how to ski. You can't learn to ski without getting your feet in those boots and putting the skis on, and you've got to take that first run down the hill, even if you wind up on your head, as I can tell you from experience, that does happen. So the first thing to do is really talk to people and see, how do I get started? And they will guide you into say, well, put a few thoughts down on paper. Talk about something that happened in your life that had a big impact on you. Write a sentence, write a paragraph, and then proceed from there.
That's the key to starting. Tom, or Joe, I understand that you are a relatively new writer.
Yes.
And how did you get started, and how did Southwest Writers help you?
Well, I tell you, I thought about doing this 30 years ago.
Correct.
But in late 18, I was influenced by my daughter-in-law to attend a meeting. And it wasn't Southwest Riders yet, but at that meeting I met someone from Southwest Riders who taught a class. So I took the class. That led to me getting involved in Southwest Riders in 2019. And what has helped me tremendously is...
That's okay. Okay. There we go with the phone.
my phone.
That's okay.
But anyway, I can't believe I didn't turn that off.
That's okay.
But anyway, through Southwest Riders, I ended up having friendships start. I will tell you, the thing about the people in Southwest Riders is they're so welcoming. They meet you where you are. If you're a rookie, they know, well, we need to help them get started. If you've been riding for a while, they meet you there. There are people in Southwest Riders that are very new, and then there's what you'd call New York Times bestsellers, all in Southwest Riders. So wherever you are in your process, there's someone there to help you. And like Pat said, there are classes, there are workshops, there's various things that are available to you, as well as friends, one-on-one, to help you, and I took advantage of all of it.
So, Joe, probably like a lot of our audience, they have had something to say. You said for 30 years, ever since I say the last millennium, you had something you wanted to write down. So how did you finally get it going?
Well, I tell you, I had a story. I had a story that I had told verbally for a number of years about meeting my hero, Mickey Mantle. I'm going to date myself, I know, but he was my hero, and I met him at a ball game in 1962, and he was really nice to me, introduced me to Yankees and so forth. 8 years later, I'm a young married man running a retail store, and in the town I was living, he came and opened a restaurant. I went and met him, and he recognized me.
No.
I couldn't believe it. But anyway, that story is a very heartwarming story. And so that story is what I started with. I started writing that story.
But since 62, you then at one point had told the story and then thought 30 years ago you should write about it. You
Yes,
thought.
I told it to someone in the 80s. I was out in Southern California.
The 80s.
And he said, "Joe, that's not a story, that's a movie." And I go, wow. So in Southwest Riders, there's screenwriters too. So
So you finally got it down. I mean, something you've been thinking about for 30 years, and finally, because you went to the meeting, you had what? Just the time to do it, the courage to do it. What all came together?
Well, I'm retired now, so I have the time, and I associated myself with people who write, and I wrote it, and it's been published 3 times.
Congratulations.
So I'm a published writer, but I'm a newbie. I have so
What's the
much
name
to
of your
learn.
story? I think it's in this analogy. Which one is it in? Seeing the World in 2020? Here's
Yes, and another story from sports called Hey Coach is in that, and that's my experience as a high school football coach while I was active duty Air Force at Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California. In my evening time, I became a football coach, and I had a very wonderful story about me and a player, and it won first place in a contest.
One of the wonderful things that Southwest Riders does is that it gives its members chances to be published by producing an anthology just about every year, an anthology of different works in different genres.
Right.
So there is a medium there for members of Southwest Riders to go ahead and be published.
every year you publish. Oh, that's an incentive that you want to be published, and you're a newbie. You might even have a chance to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But getting back to your story about Mickey Mantle, why did you get to meet him in 1962? I mean, that's kind of unusual.
Well, my dad. Well,
I'll have to read the story. It's in here.
No, it's not in there.
Oh, it's not in this one.
It's not in that one. But I'll try to be brief. I had a really fine year as a baseball player myself that summer. And so at the end of my season, my dad came home and said, we're still going to go to New Orleans, but we're going to take Joey to Kansas City. Now, the Athletics were in Kansas City in 1962. The Oakland team was in Kansas City then. He says, we need to let Joey meet his hero, Mickey Mantle. Dad got us seats right next to the ramp where the Yankees came out of their locker room. So I'm sitting there waiting, and who was the first Yankee out? Mickey. And I just holler, hey Mickey, I'm an Okie too. Now he's from Oklahoma, and he cracked up, and he come over and we talked. And then as other Yankees came out, he brought them over and said, meet my little Okie buddy Joey. So we had a wonderful time as he's heading down to become a player instead of just a guy standing there talking to a kid. I holler, hey Mick, hit me a homer. He goes, Joey, I'll sure try. His first time up, Diane, he hit a home run farther than any ball I've ever seen hit. And he's all excited, but we didn't get to talk after the game. 8 years later, he remembered that night because that was the only time in his entire career that he wanted to hit a homer for a kid that he did.
Oh, I want to cry.
So we
That
shared
is just
so we
touching.
shared that story, and when I went and saw him at the restaurant opening, he recognized me. We talked. He wouldn't let me leave. He made me stand behind him as he did autographs for other people. I got another 2 to 3 hours with Mickey that day.
I was just impressed that he would turn around and say, okay, Joey, what did he say? I'll try? I mean, for
Yes,
him to even
yes.
remember your name when he's into this big baseball game.
Well, anyway, the bottom line is that was the nucleus of me wanting to, that I needed to tell that story.
Well, why didn't you tell it sooner than 30 years? I mean, why did it
'Cause
take you that long?
Because I'm an idiot. That's the thing. People need to share. I'm no different than a lot of people here that are going to see this program. You've got a story inside you. Southwest Writers is where you need to become involved. They help you get the story out.
Shouldn't he, Patricia, shouldn't he have written that story? Why did it take him 30 years?
Because I believe there really is a gestation period for some stories. Okay, and sometimes it's way longer than 9 months. Okay. I know my own book that I wrote about my father-in-law, who was a slave laborer in Nazi Germany. It took me about 45 years to finally put that on paper.
40 to 45 years.
Yes.
And that's a story that you also told people.
Yes, it is. I
And
certainly
they-
told people that story. And, you know, everyone says, why, that's quite a story. And I said, yes, it is. And again, when I retired from my professional career, I decided it is time to write this story. And I am so glad I did.
Tell us your brief, little touching story as well.
Well, my father-in-law was a teenager when the Nazis overran Poland in 1939. He, being a young Catholic boy, was taken as a slave laborer to spend the war working for Nazi Germany. He had a terrible accident in the factory where he worked, and he almost died. And a young German man helped save him from dying from gangrene, and they became the best of friends. And it is the story of how there were German people who helped their supposed enemy during that time.
We don't hear many stories about that.
No,
Germans
you don't.
helping their enemies. We don't hear those
no,
stories.
No, you don't. But I wasn't in Southwest Writers at the time that story was written, but I did belong to a critique group, and the critique group really helped me hone the story. And Southwest Writers also has people who are in critique groups, and sometimes they open them up to other members if they have an opening, because critique groups can truly help you refine your writing beyond anything you could do yourself. So, you know, Southwest Writers has definitely helped in my work since then.
Joe, you had your story for 30 years. Thank you for sharing that story. And again, another touching story that, as you told me, we didn't even realize that the Germans were capturing the Polish people.
Very much so.
That's something that we really don't even read in the history books much. Where was your book published, and what's the name of your story?
Well, my book was self-published. It's called The War Within, The Story of Joseph. It's won several major awards. And I prefer not to self-publish. But you know, when you get to be a certain age in life and you realize you don't have much time left to deal with 5 or 6 years of rejection slips, you decide to independently publish. And Southwest Writers, in fact, has classes on how to self-publish if you decide to go that route.
And we're going to do another show with
Yes,
you,
we are.
Patricia
Yes.
Walkow, about publishing after we get it down on paper, after we start getting it down. But so Joe and you aren't unique. It has
Not
a
at all.
gestation period of 45 years, 30 years. I got one for maybe 30, 40 years.
Not
What
at all.
finally gets people, you said during this pandemic, people have had time at least to think about taking that step.
Well, I think during this specific, especially since a time like this, when your routine is not normal, okay? Writing could be a good outlet to help you put your thoughts down on paper, your anger, your annoyance. I mean, I could write essays about the pandemic, but I'm not going to because I'm too angry right now.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good time to start thinking about those stories you had in your mind or new things that have come up. Start jotting them down. Thoughts, outlines, sentences, paragraphs. It doesn't have to be complete, but get the thought on paper and then revisit it. And people can attend Southwest Writers meetings through Zoom. As I said, being we don't meet in person, they can attend through Zoom.
And the website is?
The website is www.southwestwriters.com, or you
That's
can
easy.
just do a Google search
Southwest Writers,
on
correct.
Southwest Writers, and it will take you to the website, which has our history, our programs, our classes, our upcoming meetings, authors' successes, books that are available. It's a fabulous website.
Sounds very complete as well, obviously, to get published. And again, you have a chance with your anthologies to get it published. Is it good to start with a short story, Pat? What do you, I mean, not with a full-length novel. What, a poem? What is it best to start with for the new
Whatever
writers?
feels comfortable to you. My book started with a short story. I was member of a writing group, the Corrales Writing Group, and we hired an instructor to help us. And one of the things we had to do is write a specific story. And the suggestion was, this is a book, this is not a story. So my 1,000-word story wound up being 256 pages or something like that of a book.
And how did yours start, Joe?
Well, it started as a short story.
Okay.
I had actually attended a conference which Southwest Writers put on, and there I met a publisher, and I just had a conversation, and he said, "Well, what are you working on?" And I said, "Well, I've kind of started this Mickey Mantle thing," and he said, "Well, do you have it with you?" And I go, "No," but I told him the story, and through him, I was introduced to a publisher who had a website and a magazine about the Yankees. And so through that, I talked with him. He told me what he was looking for in a number of words and so forth. He loved the story. And so that started me. Now I'm working on novels.
But that started you, the Mickey Mantle.
The Mickey Mantle
as a
story.
short
It started
article.
out. It started out at around 2,000 words or something like that.
And what did it end up? Did you do your full?
When it was published, it was published at closer to 3,000 words. So the initial cut was, but it's a short story, right? It is not a novel. It is a short story.
You could make it into a novel.
Oh, absolutely. It would be. I've thought about it. I've actually considered
Well, I mean,
it.
about yourself, how you played baseball,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
finally, I mean, what kid really meets his dream?
Oh, very few.
Very few. Very few.
Very few.
You know, not everybody has a novel that they want to write. They may have magazine articles on specific topics.
Sure.
We even have a class on writing for magazines. It's excellent. It's multi-sessions. I took the class. We have, how to find people who wish to publish your work, how to find magazines that are interested in your topics. So it doesn't have to be a full-length work. It just has to be whatever it needs to be to get your concept across. Sometimes it's a poem.
And Diane, on the website, there's a pro directory, I think is what it's called.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, there's a listing of people that'll help you in editing, proofreading, starting out, blocking out your story, the gamut. including publishing. There are, just right there at the website, just that one little drop-down thing gives you access to all the professionals.
Blocking out would be more like the outline, I imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. How to outline, how to make your characters interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of
The settings I read online. There's how to make your settings memorable, and I read also how to make your characters last beyond the close of the book.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Well,
wow.
well,
I mean, once you finish the book, I put it aside, but it said, how do you make your characters memorable to outlast the book?
Well, Diane, sometimes a concept comes to you, which it did to me. I've got something, I'm calling it Kelly Can. It's something that's loosely based on my granddad, Kelly, who was a cowboy at a ranch in Oklahoma. So I started there, but I knew it was going to be more than one book. So you do want to create characters that can go beyond one segment of their life.
Pat, what did you start with him? I mean, now he's got sequels going.
Well, he's on a roll.
He's on a roll.
You know, some writers dedicate many hours a day to writing. Some hours dedicate 2 hours in the morning. Some hours do it when the muse strikes them, like me at 2 or 3 in the morning. I'll say, I got to get up, I got to write, because I'm not going to fall asleep till I do this. Okay, so he's on a roll, and he's enjoying it, and we're enjoying his work too.
He's on, and look how he's smiling. So, Joe, what's your feeling about putting it down? Of course, about your grandfather on the. I mean, those stories need to be kept for posterity, for the future. I mean, we need those Western stories kept alive. But
Absolutely.
Why do you want to put it on paper?
Well, I find that I used to do music quite a bit, and so the writing has overcome my desire to play the guitar and sing, because I can be creative, and I can establish what the story is, and I love right now, Kelly Can is basically historical fiction. That would be what it would be called in the genre. And I love history. So now I can take a story that I heard as a kid about my granddad, expand it, go into the history books and make sure that what I'm writing is historically accurate, and then be creative.
You know,
and that's why I want to put it on the page, is because it will be something then that other people can enjoy, hopefully, and they can also learn a little history while they're enjoying a good story.
And you can be creative, and you have that need at this stage in your life to give back.
Right. Earlier in my life, I did music. My wife was a music major. I was singing in a men's glee club at the university when we met 50-some years ago. And
is that all?
And well, I'm not a kid, and anyway, so music was a great outlet. And then, like I said, about 30 years ago, people started saying, Joe, you're a storyteller. You need to be writing this down. Well, eventually, once I finished my career, I'm doing that. It's that creative impulse has always been there, and I'm just like probably 9 out of 10 people watching this show. There's something inside you that you'd like to share, and there's nothing unique about Pat or Joe. We're just thrilled to be here to share.
But you started and you did it. That's what's maybe unique. As you said, 9 out of 10 people watching have a story to share, but they're not doing it. But Southwest Writers helps you get that start.
Absolutely.
But going back to your question about is that there's some books, when you close the cover, you've forgotten the story. And there's some that stay with you. Mm-hmm. And it has to do a great deal, I think, not only with how the person writes, but you build characters that people can relate to. And you have a certain amount of sympathy for them. Even if they're evil, sometimes you can have that. And you give them challenges that throughout the story that they have to overcome. And it deepens what's called their character arc. They become a different person by the end of the story. I think that's what makes a memorable character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
During this pandemic, I didn't write stories, but I read more than I ever had because I had time, and and I thought I should read. A good friend of mine, Monica Armenta, who is a voracious reader, she's been having a story that she wanted to write for years. She finally wrote it. She says that she turned it into a screenplay instead of a book. But I said, some of these books, not your books, that I got from the library are just such a drag. I mean, the characters have all these challenges. I don't want to read about all that. I mean, this pandemic's worse enough, and these people are just bringing me down. And she said, well, the whole purpose of these characters is to read is for me to learn to have empathy. Is that true? Empathy for the people.
I think to some extent.
To learn someone else's struggles.
Well, as a writer, the struggles that I put in are struggles that move the plot of the story forward. Okay. I mean, they're not just there to be struggles. They move the underlying message of the story forward. And if you do that, it all fits together well. But if you don't, readers who read a lot can tell, like, oh, this was really just put in there. One thing I find is when I pick up a book and I read it as though it's a screenplay, I close it. I want a novel. I want the depth of the character. I don't want a film screen after a film screen after a film screen. That's just my preference.
Well, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You'll have to come back. We have the Chemo Theater, Fact and Folklore, Southwest Writers, award-winning short stories and poetry. We have Southwest Sage. Wow, you can be published. We're going to do another show with Pat regarding publishing, and that's going to be up next, so watch for that. But I wish you best. Any last word you'd like to share with the viewers about getting started?
Yes.
In 10 seconds.
Don't wait 30 years. Do it in 30 seconds, and you'll be a lot happier.
Just start, as Pat says, put that first sentence down.
That's it. Start. Just start.
And how many stories do you have in you, Joe Brown?
I sit down and in 10 minutes, I come up with 42 ideas. That's a true statement.
Oh, that's good. Patricia Walkow, thank you so much for being a part with Southwest Writers. I like that. I'm going to see if I can beat that 22 stories. Thanks for watching. Make it a great week with your family and start writing. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to New Mexicans by State Employees Credit Union, which has proudly been serving the families in New Mexico locally and abroad since 1958. State Employees Credit Union is ready to help you and your family with all your financial goals and is the exclusive sponsor of Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater in order to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a DVD copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.